Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy. What's up, guys? It's that time again. Welcome to the Frogman Friday show.
Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today.
Today, our badass guest is Ben Wallick, aka the Vanilla Gorilla. He served 11 years as a Navy SEAL, exiting as a petty officer first class. He founded Vanilla Gorilla Security in 2023, located in Metamora, Illinois. You can follow Ben on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And to take a deeper dive, go check out vanillagorillaSecurity.com. Bro, welcome to the show.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man, it's good to see you. I'm super excited about this.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I've done a few podcasts, and when I saw you reached out to him, I'm like, yeah, dude, this guy's good to go.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah. Well, let's jump right into it, man. So I always like to talk about this starting off because a lot of people have this interest in special operations. And for us who are told to be, silent professionals, you're one of those guys who emulates that, where you're like, I don't want to go out there and just tote around that I'm a special operator or I was a SEAL or whatnot. And it's more important that we discuss what we're doing currently. It's about currency, and it's also about like, what's your next life look like? So talk to me first about what was it like for you transitioning out of the special operations community? And then we'll get into your company.
Uh, it was pretty easy as far as transition goes because I went right out of the teams active duty to doing GRS contract work. So I pretty much didn't have, lose that continuity with working with team guys. Obviously you're working with a bunch of other soft dudes, but it's that same environment. So, you know, getting out for me wasn't that big of a difference. It wasn't that much of a shift, other than I was making a load more money. Uh,
Yeah.
but I wanted to try to like kind of do more of the family thing. So I ended up taking a job with my brother on the fire department locally here. And I did that for a while, and I tried to kind of get into just the civilian life, and it was it was too hard for me, man. I missed it too much, and like I mean, this with like being married, my wife, she's like, I took that fire job for a while, and she's like, and I hadn't been going on any rotations, and she's like, you're just like home now, and I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh man, you need to go, you need to go on trips. Because like in the teams, it's like you like you're gone at Chaffee for 5 weeks, you're Shaw's 2 weeks, Louisville for 2 weeks, and then you come back and you see her for a week, and it's all like fun and exciting, and then just when because I'm super annoying, and so just when like it starts to get bad, she's you're like, oh, see you later,
Yeah.
and yeah, so she's just like she's like it was real hard for us to adjust in that regard, but then the other thing was you don't realize like how much you're making as an E6 in the teams with all those special pays and stuff. And she's always been a homemaker. We've been married for 20 years, and she's we homeschool, and she's been a homemaker our whole marriage. And she's like looking at what I was making, you know, starting off and on the fire department. She's like, you need to go find
Mm.
another job. So I ended up, actually, because most of those guys in the fire department all have some other thing they're doing,
Yep.
on the side. And so I ended up I continued to do contract work, and I would trade time. Guys would take my shifts, and I'd go work. I did GRS, and then I did another job because GRS kind of wouldn't allow 30-day rotations anymore. So I did another job with a company called Trident Group, which is basically just sit down a container ship, overseas with three other team guys and eat, sleep, lift, and watch the water.
Yeah.
So
Waiting for the pirates.
that's what, yeah, waiting for the pirates. I mean, at least back when I was doing it, it was pretty active. They kind of learned their lesson after a little while where they wouldn't attack U.S. flagships, just because they
Yeah.
got shot at. But there, I mean, we were out there during a time where you on that distress line, you'd hear ships like there'd always be like some Indian dude like, "Da, da, da, we're getting attacked," da, da, da." And it's like you can't do anything about it because like our SOPs, you could not like make any aggressive movements. Like let's say a ship literally was being attacked and we could see it, like we couldn't be involved. it was only, a defensive type of
Ooh.
job. So yeah. So all those Somali pirates started hitting, foreign flagships, and they had a whole system, where they bring them into a port and they do this whole, you know, kidnapping, ransom thing and all that. But yeah, so I did that for a while. I did both firefighting and that, and then I kind of got burnt out a little bit because I don't know if you've ever done shift work before, but you know, sleep deprivation, like especially with me having some sleeping issues, TBI related, getting out of the teams. I was working a lot of 48s, 48 off or 48 on, 24 off because I was paying guys shifts back and
Ooh.
stuff, you know, and yeah, and so it kind of just, I was always tired, I was always, I felt like I was always in a fog, and I ended up just leaving the uh, the uh, the contract work and the firefighting job about 3 years ago, and took a job with a company called Tomahawk Strategic Solutions, just as a contractor, teaching CQC to SWAT teams. So some of my guys I was at Team Two with, like way back in the early 2000s, started that company. All development group guys from Red Squadron. They started that company, and I'm just a 1099 with them, go on trips, and they've been gracious enough to give me trips and all that. But it's, with four kids, and you know, especially in the Biden's economy, I go out to dinner and I got to take out a loan, just to feed my kids. I was like, man, I gotta jump into some. I gotta have
Yeah.
something else, to make ends meet. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna start. So I was like, I'm gonna start my company, but I already had this company, like the name of it, all the way back in when I started GRS in 2010. As you know, with contract world, like having an LLC is, it's beneficial for dudes for
Yep.
taxes and a whole bunch of other stuff. And a lot of contracted companies, if you don't have an LLC or an S corp or something, you got to have that to even, work with
For
them.
sure.
So, um, the company that I was working GRS through, SOC, I had to create an LLC. And back when I did that, my wife's sitting on the, computer. She's like, "What do you want the name of your company to be?" And I'm just like goofing around, and I'm like, "The Vanilla Grill Security," you know, and just because it was just on paper, it wasn't a real, it was on paper to get paid by these
Well, let's
contractors.
dig into that real quick.
And
So, why are you called
yeah.
Vanilla Gorilla? And so this will give some context to the name.
Um, I mean, there's multiple reasons. I mean, some of the reasons I probably shouldn't share because they're pretty gross. From some of the stuff I did overseas to guys, that involved poo. Uh, but uh, a I'm just you know, I'm just a wild man, at least in my early years in the teams. And, I have a very weird freaking laugh. It almost sounds like an orangutan on crack. Um, and, I always was like, always like to be in the gym and lift and all that kind of stuff. And if you look at my body, like I'm real disproportionate. Like my legs probably weigh about 5 pounds each, and my upper body's the rest of my weight. And my arms are actually super long. Like when I stand, like my friggin' fingers almost touch my kneecaps.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so there's a lot of elements to that. Like one of our platoons, my third platoon, when we were in Fallujah, our LT had like a professional drawer, like do a cartoon of our, you know, of our platoon. And with the cartoons, they're always drawing out some aspect of the dude's personality. And like, of course, mine was like my head with a gorilla body, and I'm throwing poo and stuff. So um, there was an incident overseas, where guys were pranking me, and I was fed up with it, and I may have done something in their room. So, but we probably don't need to go into depth on that. But there's many incidents like that. Uh,
I'm just seeing it now. That's the
but I mean,
short right there. That is the short that's going to go out there and just go viral. And you're going to be known as the Vanilla Gorilla with poo. And it's just going to be epic. There's going to be patches made of you.
yeah,
All the weekend warriors are going to be
yeah.
wearing it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, there may have been another incident involving a to-go box and so forth from mid-rats, but again, probably don't need to go into detail. But I mean, there was a bunch of nicknames. Like Vanilla Grill was one that one chief had for me. There was like Snow Chimp was another one, but like I didn't decide to use Snow Chimp security. It's just that even sounds even weirder. But Almighty Whitey Powder, that bald-headed guy that had power. I mean, anything related to lack of pigment was, you could throw in some nickname in that, in the midst there. So,
Sick.
but so I already had the LLC, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna turn this in, like, why can't I do this locally by me? Train civilians, and I got into the Illinois law enforcement system, the Illinois Law Enforcement Training Standards Board, because Illinois kind of does training. They don't do a lot of outside vendor stuff. It's all within their system. And so I got my instructors, two other team guys, another SWAT guy, kind of certified as ILETS-B instructors, and then I got my courses certified, and now I'm kind of doing a lot of local law enforcement training by me. In addition to, I'm also still working for my buddy's company as well. But when I decided to make it into the tactical company, we were just talking about this actually before we started live. But there's so many companies out there that are just have gay
Yeah.
names. I mean, Viking Slayer Tactical, Big Wild Beast Savage Tactical, and I just hate that stuff, man. I don't know. I think it's gay, but so I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with. I'm gonna keep this LLC. I'm gonna make a logo. I mean, part of it's funny because like people think we do security work, but we don't. You know, it's just firearms and tactical training. But but I mean, it has its benefits and its negatives, I guess, because it's like benefits are it's a name that it's hard to forget. It's like Vanilla Grill Security. Like, what's that? Or they'll see, my magnet thing on my truck or something like that, and I'm like, they give a look or whatever. But I guess like the downside is like, maybe some like larger law enforcement groups that might look at it and be like, that sounds too quirky.
Yeah, for sure.
That doesn't sound like a legit company name, but I don't care. Like, whatever, man. Like, if you want to know what I'm about, like, go to our website, look at the tactics we put out, look at the courses we put out. If the name's too quirky for you, then you're probably not gonna like working with me anyways, because I like having fun in my
Oh
classes.
yeah,
So,
man. Well, I want to
um,
dig into what you're doing actually with this company, and it's funny. I want to make this distinction that it really is funny that you obviously got a background of being a SEAL, but you're a firefighter who started a company to instruct law enforcement. I mean, the fire and police service couldn't be more. Again, it's
oh
so
yeah.
funny to see that, but you got the background when it makes sense. So okay,
Yeah, they read my resume. Like before you get hired on the fire, like you sit in front of like chiefs of police and fire, and so they're reading my resume, during the hiring process, and all the police sides like, why are you going into fire? You know, and I was like, I don't know. My brother said it's, a lot of free time, and it's, and I was thinking family and all that kind of stuff, but yeah.
yeah, no question about it. All right, so you don't do security. So what do you do? How can people get involved? Tell us a little bit about that.
So basically anything firearms related. I mean, we have, different courses on our site. Anything firearms related, we teach. One of the classes I think that has become most popular with civilians is basically I'm teaching civilian CQC. Now it's in a, more of a home defense, mindset. But I was lucky enough locally here to I got two different buildings that are really awesome training buildings for CQC. They're abandoned schools. I mean, you couldn't ask for better buildings to train in. We use I provide UTM for students and all that kind of stuff. So civilian, it's the most realistic training you can get with your own long gun using UTM. I got role players that run around, they get to shoot at role players. I got blank fire that goes on, but it's not just like, going to an airsoft range, or a paintball field. Like they're learning tactics. They're learning real tactics that we used in the teams, and that I teach to law enforcement as well. Granted, some of it's a little more like one man movement, depending on what class it is and all that. But one of the things I've noticed with regard to using UTM and simunition type stuff is a lot of these civilians have never actually shot their long gun at a
Hmm,
human. Like pointed it at somebody and fired. Because when they're on a static range, like to flag somebody is like,
huge,
you
yeah.
know, it's like huge, man. And this local club, Aurora Sportsman's Club, that's about an hour and a half from me. I've got a lot of business through them. They're actually building a shoot house, which is going to be even better for my business. But um, these guys are like really good, for civilians. These guys are wired, man. And they come down all the time, but they're very they're very muzzle discipline oriented. And I just noticed with some of my classes, they see the role player, maybe even the role player shooting blanks at them, and they just freeze, or they don't shoot, or they, drop to a knee or something like that because they just have never pointed their gun at somebody and shot at them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
So
interesting when you talk
think,
about that because you're like, when somebody gets into it, the conversion of being able to do CQC to a civilian for their in-home protection and safety is key to learn this stuff. Otherwise, you're just a sitting duck. And not that these classes are offered, it's something that they should take full advantage of. But then there's a group of people who gamify the experience. You're like, wow, this is really cool. And there's so much depth to it, and there's so much more you can learn to it. So why wouldn't I get an assault team together where we can go and do this on a bigger scale and learn more about the movement of it? So that's pretty cool stuff.
yeah, I mean, like, and these civilian guys that, are part of this club, like, this is their passion, man. I mean, some of these guys are better than a lot of law enforcement guys I've worked with because, sometimes the law enforcement thing, it's their job. They got to go do it. And these guys, this is their hobby. And like most of them are just like, an IT guy or a plumber or whatever. And they're like, after the first couple, like I gave them the first class, and then they're like, how much, what are their, because I hadn't even like made levels, at that point. And they're like, what's next? And I'm like, oh, level two, and then like a whole bunch of them come down for level two. And then they're like, what's next? I'm like, level three, and then, and it goes to level four. And then, after level four, I tell them like, there is no spoon. Like I can't teach you up, past level four, but, where you're dodging bullets. But yeah, they were all about it. And then, I mean, these guys have equipment out the wazoo. There's a lot of money running up there in Chicago. And, they're like one guy was like, he was just kind of got this Russian accent. And Ben, he's like, can we do this on night vision? And I'm like, you got nods? Because I got a set of nods. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, all right. So like I blacked out the entire school, and guys came down with nods, and yeah, I mean it's fun. I mean,
That's legit.
for them, I mean, yeah, they're not going to get any of this type of training anywhere, anywhere else, but here, especially like in Podunk, Illinois, where I'm at, there's a whole lot of nothing where I'm at. There's a Dairy Queen in the subway.
You,
That's about it.
you make a valid point though about, so like law enforcement, the unfortunate thing is people expect them to do this job and be correct 100% of the time in what they're doing, but they don't realize the lack of budgets that they have, and then on top of that, the amount of training they actually get to do on the CQC stuff. And so putting this into your own hands to go and train to be your own, protector of your family. It's not just about medicine. It's about movement. It's about being able to get to your family in that scenario and hopefully shoot the bad guy that intruded in your house, So this is really cool. So
Yeah, I mean, some guys, yeah, they see like some civilians, they'll see CQC and they think it's military law enforcement. And I'm like, dude, man, like if somebody breaks in your house and you got to, a, maybe get to, if your kids are on another floor than you and you got to get to their room, like you got to move in some fashion. I mean, that's more HR, than deliberate style CQC. But like if you're moving through your house, you're doing CQC, dude.
right.
So
Yeah, I tried to teach my wife that, and didn't go too well because she apparently listens when I talk about specific things she will benefit her against me. So she started clearing her corners, and I'm like, "What are you doing? You're doing this so well. How come I tell you to do the dishes?" And she stopped me right there, and she's like, "What did you just say?" And I was like, "I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding." But now she's like really
oh yeah, I've
inquisitive.
tried to. Well, and it's funny, people probably think like my wife's like, some tactician because of what I do. And it's like she has like nothing, she wants nothing to do with like tactic stuff. Like I mean, like I'll show her some like awesome video that I made. I'm like, look at this, and she like take a look at it. She's like, that's okay, zero interest, I mean, just chick all the way through and through. So it's like, I don't know. That's been a big problem with our marriage is like, what can we find that is going to interest us
Oh,
both?
yeah. That's called
You
you
know?
biting and putting your foot in your mouth and doing what she wants to do. No question about it. My wife's a professional dancer, so she wants me to go dance with her. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And it's just, I know it's not, I'm embarrassing. I'm not a good dancer. So it is what it is. You should ask JP about my dancing skills, by the way. He'll give you a good one on that. All right. So civilians,
Yeah, I'd be like, I know how to mosh, not dance though. But
so civilians can sign up for this. You also teach law enforcement. So how
yeah,
do law enforcement agencies get in touch with you, and what's the difference in the curriculum for them? Do you have like levels 1 through 4 for them, or how do you work that?
Uh, so the law enforcement aspect is kind of, I mean, they just have to go to my website, and all my contact information is on there. There's a law enforcement section on my website that shows the three different, they're all CQC courses. Um, but they're especially particular to Illinois. Now, that's not to say that if an outside of Illinois agency wanted our training that we wouldn't go and do the training with them. But just particularly for where we're at, they're all certified, courses through the Illinois Law Enforcement Training Standards Board. So basically, what that means is like officers that take these courses that are on there, they can get like uh, mandate credits for the time they put
Okay.
in. I don't know, like I just noticed like officers are always looking for to fill their training. They got to have, set such and such for end of the year, hit all the wave top training, hours for different stuff. So
Is this SWAT teams or is this all different types of law enforcement?
So it's there's a patrol officer class on there that we've run a couple times, which is just a basic patrol level. I call it patrol officer high threat CQC. So it's using pistols, moving smaller elements, moving as a two officer element, and then max would be four officers. And then that's only 3 days long, and then there's like a SWAT week long, for a SWAT team to basically develop SOPs, and especially if they're learning a completely, if they're like a dynamic HR team and they're learning the deliberate stuff that I'm putting out, it takes a week for them to, you know, deprocess from what they've been doing. And a lot of these teams, they, especially by me, they don't have a lot of money. Like you said, they don't get training, and a lot of them aren't full-time teams. They're just dudes that are, officers that are volunteering to do it once a month, at their local PD. So they just don't get a lot of training. And then what ends up happening is they get these different officers go to all these different schools and they come back to the team. And then it's just this, dick measuring contest where they're trying to like, this guy's like, well, I learned this at this school and I think we should do this. And this guy's this. And you know how
Yep.
that works, with the flow and actually executing like a good assault. It just doesn't work. So everyone's got to be on the same page, not only with the tactics, but how they're rolling with their muzzles and everything. So that week is kind of designed for teams to build, a foundation upon one system that they can same sheet of music. They can all work off that same sheet of music. So that's a week long, and then the other one is basically like after they do that basic week long uh, tactics week, then it's like an advanced week where we get into like more, because that week it can be a little mundane with reps. You're just doing rep after rep, trying to build muscle memory for a new type of, tactic that you're employing. So that advanced week is just kind of like, okay, we're all on the same sheet of music. We kind of know what we're doing. Let's really get into some more advanced, tactics related to
That's
CQC. So.
awesome. So you're doing okay. A lot of CQC. Are you actually teaching assaults? I mean, are you teaching rifles? Are you teaching pistols, like shooting courses, or
So I don't have any like, because again, like Illinois stuff is like, it's all like you submit a curriculum for like whatever course you want to do and then it gets certified. So I don't have any like firearms courses
okay?
listed on there for law enforcement, but I've worked with some of the teams that I've trained. I've gone out to the range with them. I'm actually going out to next week to the range with these Illinois State SWAT guys working through some drills. So I mean, and and it's not like if an agency wants some particular type of training, oh, they only teach CQC, like reach out to me and we can teach other things as well. Those are like the formal accredited courses that we offer for Illinois,
Okay.
but you know, I'll definitely, we definitely can teach, firearms, on the range as well, for sure.
Okay. Well, this is interesting because for those listening that are non-law enforcement, you don't really get an opportunity to do things like this. I've had plenty of people ask me over the years, like, what is it like to be a Navy SEAL on a mission in Iraq or Afghanistan? Like, what is that really like? And, no matter how much I describe it in the detail that I can describe it to them, it just doesn't give it what it needs because you can't know it until you do it. It's just like, you know, being a bud student and then saying, I can't wait to be a team guy. And you're like, well, what the hell do you know about being a team guy? All I know about is buds right now. And so
Yeah.
it really is like putting this into motion where you can actually see what it looks like to maneuver. And this is, for me, it's exciting because it's math, right? So it's the game of angles. And when I started understanding the three-dimensional side of geometry, I was like, man, I should have paid more attention in school because this makes super sense now. And now math's pretty cool because this math is going to help me kill bad guys. It's pretty neat. So if
Yeah.
if you're a civilian, definitely go check him out and enroll in a course of his, because this is stuff that not only is really really neat to do, but it's also invaluable tools that you can have for protection of your family. I can't stress it enough how many times people say, well, I got a gun, and I'm like, well, let's get down to the basics before that. Like, where's your medical kit in your house? I don't know. Okay, what's in your medical kit? I have no idea. Okay, cool. So you're not going to save any lives. Now we talk about your weapon in your house. Where's that at? Oh, I've got that thought out. It's right here, magnetized door. You can't get into it unless I use the magnet. I've got it loaded, ready to go. Bad guy's going to go down. It's like, so how are you getting to that bad guy? What are you going to do? No idea. Okay. So take these courses. These are
Leroy Jenkins. Leroy Jenkins.
that's that's
I guess.
exactly it.
You
But it's so
know?
important. It is so important that what you're teaching. I don't know many people that are doing that for civilians. I know a few guys that are teaching it for law enforcement mill, but I've never heard of this for civilians. So that's pretty
Yeah.
badass, man.
Yeah, even in so like the larger classes, with CQC classes, you know, the what we do, like even like home, like, so I'll come to your house too and do like in your house, like I did that this last Saturday with a couple. And we're shooting sim in their or UTM in their house. Now I got to be very mindful of the friggin' the what's behind, I don't want them tacked up their wall, so it's usually like in the garage or the basement, or I got to put like, because that stuff runs real hot, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 375 feet per second. So I got to put like tons of cardboard up, and but I bring my role player. He breaks in, and they put him down, and I got a blank shotgun that goes off. I mean, it's pretty realistic. So, and my thing about like the larger classes I do, where it's at the schools, is like some of these companies out there, what they're charging, like I don't charge that much, all right, and comparatively to some of these other companies. But some of these other companies, like, guys have complained to me, like they'll throw like 20 dudes, in a class with like one or two instructors or something like that. And just because obviously, at 300-400 bucks a head, you're making a
Yeah.
good amount, for that class. But I will not sacrifice, making more. I won't try to make more money based off of the value that people leave with. I don't want them standing around most of the class and be like, yeah, I went to that class and I stood around most
Yeah.
of the time. Like, no, I'm not doing that. So, you know, I'll run courses with even like four dudes just because, like, I don't care. Like, that means they get even more reps in my
Well,
opinion.
that
So
shows how passionate you are about the craft. So you're really focused on making sure that people are walking away retaining the information you're putting out so they can better serve themselves, which is awesome. Because it's not a cash cow.
yeah,
And unfortunately, more people are starting to take this stuff seriously. They just need to know where to go. So now being able to go to you, and who cares about traveling to Chicago? I mean, Illinois, it's easy. Like people are traveling these days. You want to go get some good training, go do some CQC. It's like the coup de grace of what we do in the special operations community. So for you to be able to
yeah.
do that, do you put civilians in gear when they're going through their program?
So like my role players obviously are, got UTM, they got gear and stuff like that. So I haven't got done like the force on force thing where I'm having them shoot back, because I'd have to outfit everyone in masks and then they fog up. And then, so I've just kind of resorted to blank fire for that. And you know how it could be sometimes with force on force where I don't know, it's like people just like dump all the tactics out the window and it's just like paintball
Yeah.
all of a sudden. And so I found with like the blank fire shotgun blanks, I can give them a more realistic, like especially inside. And I mean that most people have never heard live fire go off inside
Oh
buildings
yeah.
before. And so, I mean, you see some really crazy stuff that people do reacting. But I think that's can be more valuable than, because the simunition is just like tack, tack. It's not giving you that feeling of like, holy crap, I'm just engaged with somebody that's shooting
Right.
at me.
Yeah,
So
until I mean, it's gonna be the tack until they get pegged with that first round, and then they'll be like, "Oh shit!" And then they're like, "Okay, we're gonna slow things down. We're gonna get some more barricades going here. We're just gonna think about this logically for a second." I remember the first time I got
yeah,
shot with a
yeah.
simunition round, and I was just like, turned into a giant hickey on my neck, and I was like, stinging for just like hours and hours, and I'm like, "Okay, this sucks." Like that, I gotta watch now. I gotta be smart about this. Of course, in the teams, you're not really supposed to wear a full mask because you're a pussy if you do. So you just wear your goggles and leave your face completely exposed so you can be cool. Yet nobody wants to get shot in the face.
Well, no, and then you're on like I remember down in the at Fort Knox, I was in the Humvee, and on a turret, and I had friggin' a blank saw that I'm shooting at these Knoxville
Yeah.
role players, and they're shooting at us with paintball guns, and I'm taking them in the mouth, and I'm like, this is ridiculous, man. This is so dumb. Like, I mean, literally eating paintballs,
Oh,
But
that was love. I loved Fort Knox. That was such a great time. So realistic and just the whole city. We had a we had a guy bring out some. It was some new round at the time that was still less lethal. You could shoot it at each other for all that stuff, and he's like, you should try this. And I was like, what is this? Because it was a full-on M4. It had the scope on it, ACOG on it, and he said, this thing is 3-minute angle. And I'm like, huh? The ammo? I was like, you got to be kidding me. He's like, dude, try it for this next run. I'm like, I'm in. So he loaded me up. I got to use this thing. We get up to the top of this building, and there's some bad guys down on the ground, and they're just staying around. And so I was like, well, let's see what we got. And I shoot this one dude right in the side of the head. He goes down on the ground. He is rolling on the ground, holding his head, and he had a mask on, but I'm like, oh shit, this is awesome stuff. And of course, we get back, and he wants. He's a role player. He wants to ask the question like, "Who just shot me?" And I'm like, "This, we got to get one of
yeah,
these for every guy." But yeah, that stuff, it stings. And this is what I tell people: it's like, when you see the gunfire and all that stuff, this is not the time to rush in and get yourself killed. This is the time to slow it down and check what you've got going on, assess it for a split second. And you can't do any of that or know any of that without going through training that you perform. So um, this is
yeah.
awesome stuff.
Yeah, those I got one little short story on Knox at Fort Knox because those role players, it's like their weekend work. It's like their time to shine
Yeah,
against team
man.
guys. And quick story that we had cleared this one building we were in there. There was this huge giant farm girl, and they had told those role players like, hey, whatever level of escalation of threat you present to them, they can present back to you. So like, just don't. Well, get she wanted to get down. And like this red-haired dude, I'm not gonna tell his name, he went over to development group too. But like, he's trying to prisoner handle her, and dude, she's like throwing him around, working him over, and we're like standing back like, "Ah, look at this, you know. And he gets embarrassed, and he jumps on her back, puts in a neck seal, and just puts her down, like out, like completely chokes her out. Like 20 seconds later, she wakes up, she's crying, and he's like cussing at her. He's like, I told you not to do that. But anyways, I thought that was just
It's so funny. It is amazing the level of role players, the serious ones that show up all the time. And they start to get really good because they know the area, they know all the bullshit that we're going to
no,
pull. And so they're ready for it. And so it gets better when you can fight against somebody who knows the territory better than you. But some of them take it
oh
seriously.
yeah,
I think I remember the girl that you're talking about. I think I remember. I think I tried to stay away from
she
her
she
because that's
she
not fair. Like,
she was a big old gal.
there was a big girl there. She was wearing overalls. I remember this girl. She's a
Oh yeah, same girl.
awesome. Yes, I remember her well. I
Yeah.
remember we tried to get her in flex cuffs, and it was just becoming a massive problem to get her arms back behind her. And guys are like, I
Oh
don't know what
yeah.
we need to do here. Do we need to seriously call a timeout for a second to have a discussion with our, top about like, hey, how do we not put this girl down, but say like, you're a little too big for her to be messing around. Where we don't want to push crazy stuff, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
tell me, what do we need to know? What haven't we gone over yet with Vanilla Gorilla Security? What do we need to know?
I mean, not much other than what my website, has on there. And then I got the social media accounts. Now I haven't had social media until I started my business, and I can see why I didn't have it, because it's super
Mhm.
addictive. And, and especially like my personality, like I like making people laugh, and I like, you know, being goofy. So it's like, oh, what next goofy thing can I post, to, make people laugh. So I definitely, it's been a little bit of, with the family and wife, like trying to like monitor, like not being on that friggin' stuff too much. But I have an Instagram, vanillagirlsecurity.com. I got a Facebook, which my Facebook is just Ben Wallick. And then my YouTube is vanillagirlsecurity.com. But I post a lot of random, like some stuff related to my business. I post some of my family stuff, goofy stuff. I mean, it's kind of all over the place, with stuff that I post. But I also, I'm fortunate enough to have 4.5 hours of raw footage of my Buds Class
Oh
242.
wow.
So yeah, and I don't know many team guys that, I mean, all in the contract world, anyone I'd know, like nobody, I mean, they might have some pictures, maybe a few clips, but um, uh, Dan Tabor, who was our proctor for 242, for some reason, he just wandered around with one of those old school cameras and filmed everything from, the first day of first phase through first phase, Hell Week, post Hell Week, pool evolution stuff. Obviously you can tell in any of the videos which one's me because just it's just the giant white ball. Um,
I've seen your pictures. That's
but
right. Because
yeah,
you
because I
were
was
242. I was in 245, 246. So not that far apart. Yeah, man.
yeah, no, yeah. So I've been posting little reels and clips from that. Just because it's like 20 years later. It's funny because like you'll have like these keyboard warriors like OPSEC, and it's like, dude, you ever seen the Discovery Channel? Like, I mean, unless some terrorist is going to learn how to carry a log in a boat from the video, I don't really think it's OPSEC, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Whatever.
this is something that I always say about that because, I think when everybody gets out, there's a degree of discretion that we hold of like, what should my limits truly be about what I talk about, what I don't. But what I've seen constantly is us not sharing enough stories about what it is really because we're the recruiters, not the recruiters that suck that are just trying to lock you in and get you a contract to go into the military. We're the actual recruiters. And so if I tell people my military sucks and I got out with some post traumatic stress and TBI and nobody's helping me and I just falling apart and all this shit, and it's like, who's going to want to join? They're like, no. I actually got to make the best friends that I've ever had in my life. Like you could possibly imagine the brotherhood. They'll learn the things, to see the
Yeah,
places, to do the things, and you get paid to do this shit. And you're like, I can't believe that this is a job. This is insanity, right? Like, fuck.
I know. I know.
So,
Yeah, I know. That's how I felt when I got to, team and during buds. I'm like, I love being around dudes, man. Like, like-minded dudes. I'm like, this is like, yeah, it was hard. It was hard for me to get out because it was like, man, this is like where this is my shtick
no
right here.
doubt, when I left the quarter deck, getting out, and I did 8 years, turned around to the quarter deck and gave it the double thumbs up, like, hell yeah. And I was just like, am I making the right decision? And every single day, you're like, I'm glad because I am here for my family. I can be with my family, but every day I miss it. And I don't think that'll ever go away because it's just such a unique place. No doubt.
Yeah, and there's really, I mean, there's no other like civilian sector that can reciprocate the type of humor. I mean, there's some, but like the type of humor and just the type of stuff that goes on, it's very hard to, especially in today's, libtard woke culture. Like you can't, none of that
No,
would
no.
fly.
I mean, I thought to try this on for size when I was asked to give a public speech one time. And they're like, we were looking more for like a leadership speech and like, how do we make our company really jive together? And I'm like, I mean, I don't really do that because I wasn't like a big time leader in the SEAL team. So that doesn't, I was one of the operators, but I'm sure I can
Yeah.
fashion things together from what works in the SEAL team. So I did that. And then I came back and I actually presented it to them and they're like, this is nuts. This will never fly in our community. And I'm like, well, that's why you're always going to have problems then, because you got to think objectively and you got to think outside the box of like, do different things than what everybody else is doing. This is the reason that you guys all have problems, is because you're all trying to do the same shit. Anyway, I digress on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, I
Totally
love to
agree.
round this thing out by asking one simple thing, and we're looking for hero stories, man. So this is your time to give a story on somebody that you served with that's considered you consider your hero. somebody who did something heroic, some died for their country. Just who's your hero and why?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've like you, I mean, probably like you, I've worked with a lot of guys in the past, so it'd be hard to like pick one particular dude, that I mean, I was fortunate enough to not have any dudes like die in my, presence or
Yeah.
anything like that. Um, you know, uh, Hero story. Um, well, I worked with Adam Brown for a little bit and he that was a if you read his book and his whole thing, like he's definitely up there in the hero category. Worked with Jason Workman, who died in extortion. You know, good dude. Um, but I can't really, I guess, put one particular like story in mind.
Yeah.
But
No, I hear it. Jason, I mean, Adam Brown, that book called Fearless, it was one of the first books that I read when I got out. I was out for a while before he was killed, but yeah, you think you're a badass in the teams because you're just in this level with other guys that are leveled up, and you're always trying to chase them. So you're like, at least I'm part of the crew, and I'm kind of badass in my own right. And then all of a sudden, you see
yeah,
this stuff, and you see this book, and you're like, whoa, there's so many levels to this of badassery. You
yeah,
know,
oh yeah, yeah. I guess I have a hero story on like not combat related, but a good buddy of ours that we call the Legend. Uh, we he's kind of a hero to me because he let us hook him up to a Zodiac with a paraglider in Kuwait with about 150, 200 feet of climbing rope attached to him. And we we were going to pull him. His goal was to be pulled up into the bay we were at and release and fly his paraglider around. And it didn't work out that well. Bad, bad winds, and the army people on the base weren't even allowed in the water, and we're like hooking him up with his paraglider, and he lifted up immediately, and it was so much force that it lifted the Zodiac out of the water, and he couldn't release, and he friggin' nosedived in front of a steel pier, like right in front of it, and totally unscathed, but it was legendary.
that is
So
every platoon in the SEAL teams, no question. Like, hey,
yeah,
this is a good idea.
yeah, and our chief was like he was down there with us, and it's like this is a good idea to hook Mike up to this Zodiac with this paraglider, which I don't even know why he brought a paraglider. Like we were supposed to be going to Afghanistan. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go up on a mountain by the base and paraglide down." Why he brought it, I don't even know. But for some reason, that was decided that was a good idea, and he almost died on that deployment, not from combat.
I think it's a pretty good idea. I mean, that sounds like something I'd do for sure. Like maybe stupidity. That is epic. Well, thanks for sharing. See, that's the goal, man. It's just sharing stories that nobody knows about, really. Because again, it goes back to the recruiting tool of like, why would you want to do something that's so difficult that you're risking your life for that you could not, you might not come back home from? What's intriguing about it? What's cool about it? What's guys like you, who send it, who tell those stories? Because I've had a lot of guys tell the story of their hero, but now this is a new touch on it where it's like, let me tell you the other side of the SEAL teams and what we try to do because we think it's a good idea. And while most of the time it doesn't work out as planned, but you still walk away from it. Like we talk about lawn darts, right? You're in buds and you're on the tower and you just come flying off the rope and you go all the way down. It's like what, 40 feet tall, and you just smash right into the sand and guys get up and they continue running the O course. You're like, nowhere else in the world do people walk away from this shit.
I know. Yeah.
That
No.
is awesome, man. Well, everybody go check out vanillagorillasecurity.com. Go give him a follow on social media and sign up for one of his courses because this is important stuff. This is stuff that you need to know. You're not doing yourself any favors by just winging it. So now that you know that there's training out there specifically for this to protect your family in your home and understand how to actually move with your weapon, go check it out. Go sign up for it. Man, I appreciate you being on, brother.
Hey man, I really appreciate you having
Yeah,
me on. Especially since I ain't no big time dude, so I'm not a big social media presence, so I
neither am
appreciate
I. This is the brotherhood, man. Don't
it.
intend to be. Hopefully we'll grow this and get you some viewers. But other than that, man, this is just fun for me. But for me, I get to hang out with the
Cool,
brother
man.
every single week and discuss cool stuff and hear some cool stories. And it just makes me want to go back in even more. So my wife hates this show.
Oh, I know. Yeah, because yeah, no, I can see that, man. You hear these stories and you're just like, oh, I miss it, man. Because you'll agree, like there's some storytellers in the teams and platoons that like I've just never been found
Yeah.
anyone like that. And guys sitting around telling stories, and it's just that to me that was like half the fun of the platoon was guys just telling stories.
Monday morning musters. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, and it always happened at the platoon
Yeah.
hunt, man.
The good stuff with Charlie Sheen and Navy SEALs on and the VHS tape in the backdrop. Oh yeah. Right on, man.
Frogman Friday.